Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. We are really excited to kick off our fireside chat on what concerns about databases keep tech leaders up at night. I'm joined by two fantastic speakers today, Iqbal Khan, who is the president and CTO at Alachisoft, and Umair Shahid, who is the founder at Stormatics. So before our speakers do a deep dive on the issues that CTOs face in mission critical environments, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and the recording will be shared with you afterwards. If you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to share it either in the Q&A box or the webinar chat, and we'll address them at the end of the session. And that's all from my end. Over to you, Umar Iqbal.
Thank you, Annie. And I think that you're being extra courteous if you call me a speaker in here as well, because I really am not. Iqbal, you are the person in the limelight. I'm just here to be the host. So thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming in.
My
So
pleasure, Umair.
yeah, we're going to dive right in, and here's something that I often tell people. Some things in life are meant to be boring. You never want to be on an exciting flight, right? I mean, you want your flight to be absolutely boring, nothing exciting happening on it. And databases we see, in a similar way, in a similar light. You don't want your databases to be exciting, to be, um, thrilling in any way. You want your database to just work, just, be boring. And if something does go wrong, much like if something goes wrong on a flight, it will make a lot of people scream. And it's extremely painful, and that's what we will be talking about. What are the possible concerns regarding the databases that might keep tech leaders up at night? So, Iqbal, the first question, and that is the first question in your experience as you work with the tech leaders, what kind of issues do you think that they're most worried about?
Umair, thank you. Before I dive into that answer, I think I'll give you a context of the environment that I deal with or that we deal with in our company. We have a product that actually caters to high transaction applications, and scalability and high availability is of paramount. Our customers are using our product in their mission critical applications. So these are live online applications. So I think obviously, all of our customers who use our product are using relational databases on the back end. Majority of our ecosystem is in the Microsoft side. So the leading database there is SQL Server, but we come across Oracle, we come across MySQL, and obviously Postgres as well. But the issues are the same that we come across, which is that because of the scalability, because of the sensitive nature of these mission critical applications, the database is seen as a very sensitive component that if it did not perform, if it did not provide high availability, if it did not provide the scalability, and for those who may not understand what scalability means here, I'm sure your audience do, but still, a database might have an excellent performance with just 5 users, but is it going to have that same performance with 5,000 or 50,000 users? Again, not database users, these are users of the applications that are then hitting on the database. So I think because of that sensitivity, performance, scalability, and high availability are the biggest concerns that we come across when we talk to our customers and the management in those organizations.
Perfect. Thank you so much for defining that and setting that context. And I think that, performance is kind of self-explanatory, and thank you for diving into scalability. Maybe, let's just do a double click on high availability as well. And for the purpose of, for the education of our audience, if you can define what high availability means and why is it important to tech leaders?
High availability, again, as they say, the strength of a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So anything in the application infrastructure that becomes weak and forces the application to either go down or become so slow that it is not operable, that is essentially a high availability problem or lack of high availability. So lack of or high availability for our customers is obviously the bottommost layer is the database. That is where everything is originating. So the database has to always be up. So that means it cannot be a single instance. It has to be a multi-instance type of a database environment. There has to be some sort of failover within that scenario. Some customers then also they take high availability to the next level of disaster recovery, where they deploy the applications in two different sites. I was just talking to one customer, I think yesterday, that they were deploying their applications in two different sites. And two different sites could also mean one is active, one is passive, or it could be that they're both active sites. The more common situation is the active passive site, which is because a lot of businesses, for compliance reasons also, they have to ensure high availability. So high availability means that none of these components can go down. Database being the most sensitive of those also has to there, but then the next tier above is the application, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah, the database is not supposed to go down. No pressures, right? So no, and again, thank you for explaining that. Redundancy, as I understand with your explanation, redundancy is important. You cannot just have one copy of the data,
Could
just
you please
one
repeat that
database.
again?
So the way I understand it, can you hear me well now? Yeah. Did we? Is it my problem?
No,
Am I losing?
I think Iqbal might be experiencing a delay
Okay. It seems like he's
or a
back
Can you
lag.
online
guys
now.
hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. I think there might have been a little bit of a glitch in the matrix in there.
Yes.
Okay, so essentially what I understood from your explanation is that redundancy is important. It is extremely important to have multiple copies of the database so that in case one goes down, you can rely on the other one. Availability is so critical that you cannot wait to bring the entire database up back from a backup or from a copy. You need to be able to switch over pretty much immediately. Right. And yeah, you're right. We do work with customers as well that want that kind of redundancy on multiple sites as well. And we have those concepts of hot standbys and warm standbys. Warm standbys are on in different regions and different sites that are also used for load balancing and horizontal scaling. But hot standbys are the databases or the nodes that are ready to take over the moment something happens. So they're always in sync with the primary. Now let's zoom in a little bit on the individuals in an organization that will be responsible for that very critical piece of infrastructure of always being available, of the database performing well, any risks that are associated with the database. These would typically be the head of IT operations, the VP, the DevOps, the people that are heading those. When SLAs are on the line, in your experience, how do you see teams typically respond if something breaks in production and SLAs are on the line?
Yeah. And I'll give you an example on the SLAs being on the line. One of the leading airlines in Europe, I won't name them, they're our customer, and I was talking to their CIO a number of years ago, and they said that when we do some sort of a marketing campaign and we have a special promotion, that people will then flock to our website and they'll try to purchase. If our website is down for 1 hour, we lose more than 100,000 euros in
Per
just
hour.
the 1 hour. Yes, 1
Wow.
hour. So I'm saying the cost of going down is extremely high. And not to mention, this is not even to mention the customer loyalty that they lose, because any customer that is depending on that to run their own business is going to then look for alternatives. So when the SLAs are on the line, what we deal with usually, we deal with three types of groups in these organizations. One are the application developers who are actually developing these high transaction customer facing applications, and they go through the entire release, the SDLC of releasing that. And most of our customers have a staging environment which is fairly similar to a production like environment, so that they can simulate a lot of these issues there. But then there's QA, and then there's the part of the DevOps, and then they have these people who are managing their infrastructure. These are not managing servers at the operating system level only, but these are people who are managing applications and the databases. They're the ones who have to make sure that everything is up and running. And if things break, and they always do, I mean, like all software, things break. Our software, also breaks. Then you have to have a workaround. You have to bring things up quickly. So the downtime for the customer, as I just gave the example of 100,000 euros per hour cost for that customer. So sensitivity is extremely high. But as I said, having said that, the redundancy is there to help with all of those things. And databases are what we normally see. The databases usually have gone through enough testing upfront that they tend to be the more stable pieces in the application stack. That is not to say that they don't have problems, but the other pieces are in a flux much more than the databases are. I mean, the database design is usually finalized upfront. There are a lot of optimizations being done, but the application code is constantly changing. All of the other pieces in between are constantly being tested against that code change. So the things do break. In our experience, most of the time that we have encountered things breaking, they are usually above the database. But the databases are also a very sensitive component of this, and the staff that we deal with manages this entire, the whole stack, starting from databases to the applications, whether these are on premises or they're in the cloud. It's the same. Our customers, even when they are moving to the cloud, they're not outsourcing their applications to the cloud vendors. They're only using the infrastructure, the convenience of deploying those things, but they want to control, they want to manage everything themselves. So at least that's the customer that we deal with. I'm sure a lot of the smaller customers don't have that capacity, but any from mid to large size customers, the sensitivity is too high for them to outsource that entire thing. So their own staff is on the line.
Sure. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what we see as well, by the way. It's they use the infrastructure, but the business logic has to remain in-house. The business logic and the control over the entire business logic has to remain in-house. Now, you touched upon SLAs that are related to availability and when things break and things become unavailable. But SLAs also relate to performance and time limits. So, I'll give you an example. We're working with a fintech that in turn service some banks, and they've got these batch jobs that they need to run, and the SLAs dictate that they need to complete an entire batch in less than 4 hours. Right? So there's a time limit to an SLA as well, and that directly relates to performance. How do you see that side of the SLA and the firefighting that will be needed in order to actually comply with that kind of an SLA?
I mean, we have another customer in the US. It's a large bank, and they use our product as part of their corporate bank wire system. And as you know, the bank wire, so it's like a workflow. all the wire requests are submitted and they are processed in the background, and the wire has to be done in the same business day, or it cannot be delayed beyond a certain time. So there's an SLA on that also. What our experience is that a lot of the performance and issues and scalability issues are ironed out upfront before they even go live. So it's not that they're just going to deploy the application and suddenly find out, oh, I didn't know that I was going to have that much load on me. Because as I said, the sensitivity of the business is so high, there's absolutely no way, nobody's going to lose their job on this point. Oh, I didn't know what the load was, so we didn't test for it. So they test for their load. That is why they have the staging environment where they do, actually they test beyond even their production maximum load. But the problems that happen, can you hear me?
Yeah. I think your video froze for a little bit over there, but I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. So the problems that happen is when some pieces break, something goes wrong. A network card starts to misbehave. One of the very common thing is something goes wrong with the hardware, and a network card breaks, and that's going to affect whatever server that network card breaks, that server is not going to behave, no matter how much testing you've done in staging. So it is those pieces that start to break, which is what you cannot predict. And then you have to have a plan to get out of it quickly. And the problem is that databases are the most difficult to get out of, and because the fact that they don't have redundancy, like the same way that the application tier has. And an application tier, you can just throw away an entire application server and just put in another one in its place. Our product is also sort of an in-memory storage of sorts, but we also have redundancy within that storage. So we allow you to throw away one of our servers and bring in another one. But it is those types of things that become unpredictable. So, and you cannot test for those in your staging because they only happen in production.
Right. Okay. So now we've spoken so far about the preventive measures, or a preempting of a situation where an SLA might breach. But, Murphy law says that if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. We were just discussing that a little while back, right? So things do go wrong in production environments, and there is at times a need to fight fires. In your experience, how have you seen organizations deal with such kind of firefighting?
With a lot of stress. I mean,
Of course.
we have sat in meetings that were 7-8 hour long meetings because we were debugging a production issue that just would not go away. In the end, maybe it was caused by our product, was caused by some other component, that doesn't matter. We were part of the team because until you fix it, everybody's in the tip. So it takes a lot of the attention. It gets escalated very quickly. As I said, if 100,000 it's actually 100,000 euros per hour was the cost of downtime. Imagine the sensitivity.
Yep.
So the companies, they do react very, very quickly and very efficiently. At least the customers that we deal with across the board in all countries. We've got customers in the US, we've got customers in Europe and other places. They do react in a way, and they bring in consultants, experts of specific areas. If it's an issue with networking, they'll bring that. If there's an issue with Microsoft ecosystem, operating system, they'll bring that. Whatever the potential area of problem that is misbehaving, they have experts on that, and then we are experts from our side, and that's how we join this environment, and we are collecting debugging to see where the problem is. But the companies are pretty quick to, I mean, within less than an hour, everybody's on the call. There's, whether it's a Zoom or a Teams meeting or whatever existed before these two, everybody's on that, session.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so everybody kind of comes together, puts their head to put their heads together, and do whatever firefighting needs to be done over there. So we've talked so far about operations and about how things are dealt with in production environments. Let's put the hat on of a CTO of a typical mid to large size organization. CTOs are planning for the future. They're planning for scaling, they're planning for growth, and they're looking at the technology stack and trying to figure out how the stack is going to grow. Um, Maybe walk us through, again, from your perspective and from a database angle, what are some of the considerations that CTOs have in mind as they're planning for this kind of growth?
So we have a very unique experience is that our customers are usually very conservative. So a lot of the innovative technologies are there when they're designing and developing their applications. Once those applications go live, they become very conservative. They don't deviate too much from that technology stack. For example, if there's a new innovation in the database technology, they're not going to touch it because it's a live application. If, as the saying goes, don't fix it if it ain't broke. So our experience is different. Obviously, when there's a new application, that is when there's a lot of innovation happens, and the CTOs are responsible, obviously, for making sure that their organizations are competitive, making sure that their technology is delivering the business objectives. So if that same CTO or CIO, said, okay, if my marketing department is going to come up with a special deal that is going to bring a few million extra users to my website, I better be able to handle that load and bring that business. So that becomes a net positive experience instead of being a damage of the reputation. So that is where the CTOs have to always focus. Their focus is mainly business. Are we developing applications? Are we using the technologies that are meeting the needs of our business? And most of the companies that we deal with, and again, as I said, we are in a more narrow situation where we are talking to companies who've already developed or are developing the applications. At that stage, there's a lot of innovation. The latest technologies, latest everything is going to be used. But once they're live, then they even our new versions, they don't upgrade for years. So that's a constant battle that we have to deal with. So and the reason they don't is because the cost to the business is very high for touching whatever is working. So I think the CTOs have to balance that act. So a lot of new applications that get developed, they will use the leading edge technologies, but at the same time, they have to keep all of the existing ones running. And it takes them years to replace an application. I mean, 5 years is like the minimum that you can think of, and most of the time it is more than that.
Got it. Got it. So let's also talk about, we talk about all of these things that you need to do, and there's a lot of effort that goes in order to ensure that the application stack can scale, that it's reliable in production, et cetera, et cetera. All of that comes at a cost, right? The infrastructure comes at a cost, the research comes at a cost, the firefighting comes at a cost, at a huge cost, actually. Let's talk about the infrastructure cost for a moment. And we talked about redundancy, but every time that you add redundancy, you increase cost of the infrastructure. If you're deploying in the cloud, if you're hosting your own infrastructure, no matter what you do, that cost just keeps getting multiplied. Do you see a balancing act of cost versus resilience in your customer base, or in your experience, or would you say that they're willing to put in a lot of money, throw money at the problem, and make sure that they have resilience, even if it comes at very high costs?
I think every customer is very budget conscious, and these days they're extremely budget conscious. I mean, we did have those good old days when budget conscious, but these days they're very budget conscious. But again, everything is relative. So if you're going to spend a few more extra bucks on ensuring redundancy, the cost, you compare that with the loss of revenue that you will incur if you did not do that. And if the revenue margin is high, then obviously you'll spend the money. Spending the money doesn't mean that you're not going to look for the best possible cost-effective option, but it does mean that you will do something about it. Now, if you're a smaller company where the business cost is not that high, then you will not spend on redundancy. You will take your chances. And we've got a variety of those customers. So the smaller customers that we have don't have redundancy. I mean, they have redundancy within one site, but they don't have multi-site redundancy. But when we have larger customers, they have multi-site redundancies. So I think it all comes down to the business sensitivity. How much business are they conducting through that application in which they're using our product? Because again, a mid to large size company, they're probably doing at least tens of millions and hundreds of millions and maybe even billions of dollars of business, right? So how much of that business is being done by this one application? If this application is doing $20-30 million worth of business, are they going to care that they've spent an extra $50,000 doing something? Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not.
I think that is the angle from which to look at. But if their overall business is less than a million, they're going to be very, very sensitive. They'll go for open source. They'll go for all the free stuff, and they won't even care for support. They'll say, "We'll take care of stuff ourselves." So there's a threshold after which they start to spend more. Usually, it's when their revenue is more than 10 million is when they have to start spending, or else they cannot grow.
Got it. Okay. Now, you talked about the variety of customers that you have faced, and it sounds like a big variety or a big number of customers that you work with are medium to large size enterprises, which makes sense. But there are others as well, and I imagine that the approach that every customer takes towards their infrastructure and towards their database is different as well, because everybody has their own way of dealing with things. I imagine that from your perspective, there are some good ways to handle things and not so good ways to handle things. And so far, we've been discussing all of the so-called do's, do this and do this and do this. Maybe also enlighten us on the don'ts, what we shouldn't be doing, in your experience where you have seen organizations that you feel they might not have made the right decisions. Maybe we can tell our audience about what not to do.
Because I'm sitting on this side of the table, it is hard for me to judge what mistakes our customers are making that we don't know about. Obviously, we only know about the mistakes that they are sharing with us. What we do know is that our customers behave very differently based on their size, based on the sensitivity of their applications. And as a company, we have to cater to all those tiers. These are all the different tiers of customers. And the same goes with anybody who's watching this talk, is that your customers are not all the same. So if you don't understand their business, their profile, their pocket size, their business pain, how much are they able to do, spend or do, then you're not going to really be talking to them in a very productive way. Because if you one size does not fit all, you have to cater your message, your solution to the needs of your business. Now, the business side, the businesses that we deal with, the IT people, they are constantly facing the same challenges that, as I said, their decisions are not all correct, because human beings make decisions and human beings make mistakes. And especially with mid to large size companies, sometimes personalities also clash. So that also drives decisions, sometimes wrong, sometimes right. So all of those factors come in, that kind of affect the judgments that they have. I don't know whether I answered the question that you asked or not.
No, I think it's a good thing to keep in mind. Essentially, we are talking about all of the do's. I was wondering if there are some very clear signals that say hey, please do not do this. And, as an example, I generally tell our customers that if you take a backup, absolutely periodically test the backup. Do not ever leave the backup untested because when you need it is when there's a fire that needs to be put out, and you don't want an untested backup at that time. That's a big don't. So it's those kind of things. Anywho, um, looking at the tech landscape, it's ever evolving, it's ever shifting, but uh, some things impact the landscape more than others. Compliance pressures, especially in sensitive industries like finance and healthcare, etc., they put a lot of pressures on the industry. um, how does that impact the regulatory compliance? How does that impact database resilience and the need, or essentially, what would keep a tech leader up at night?
Well, I think compliance is a major factor, and it's not just high availability compliance, it's also security, it's also a lot of other things. And many of our customers in the last about a year to a year and a half or 2 years max have been on a really extreme push to increase security in their systems, which so previously, even though those security features were there from us and from databases, they were probably not using them. Now, because of the FedRAMP and the other federal regulations, they have to comply, or else they could face consequences. So then they go into, and security is a big thing these days. Everybody is making sure that at the minimum encryption is there for TLS, then data encryption, TLS for transfer, and there's also encryption at rest, which is also something that at the minimum TLS. So stuff like that. That is how they make sure compliance drives a lot of their behavior, and compliance is getting more and more strict as we see. In the past, financial services sector was a lot more compliance sensitive, but other sectors were not as much. Now more and more sectors are, a lot of sectors are compliance sensitive.
And some of these regulations that are now coming in, for example, a few years ago, European Union rolled out the GDPR law, and we have that CCPA law that is, that California rolled out as well. It's not specific to an industry either. I mean, it cuts across every industry in every business. So it just, it's no longer about what industry you're in. If you're handling data, you gotta comply.
Yes.
So
no, I agree with you, and we are seeing the same thing, that when the regulation comes in, then businesses have to comply, and that also kind of forces them to take another look at their application and do other things that they would otherwise not do. So they would do a few more things because they have to touch this infrastructure anyway, so they might as well tweak a few more things than they would have otherwise, because otherwise they would just not touch it because it's working.
Yep. Blessing in disguise, I guess. The compliance, the regulatory compliance.
Yeah.
Now, the big thing everything is talking about, everybody is talking about nowadays, AI and its impact. How have you seen the database landscape impacted with this, the advent of AI?
I will first talk from my customer's perspective. Most of our customers have not touched AI yet. I mean, they have, I'm sure, touched within their organization, like everybody's using some variation of chat GPT or others to improve their own effectiveness and knowledge at individual level. But to embed and incorporate AI within their application, so far we haven't seen any. But then, as I said, our customers are conservative. They don't like to touch anything unless, so if somebody is developing a new application, AI might be incorporated. So that's the first part. But we ourselves are using AI quite heavily within our organization, but that is to improve our effectiveness, both every department, marketing, sales, tech support, engineering, QA, HR, everything. Everything is going through AI, but it is still more ad hoc. I mean, we just still use the paid subscription of some of the AI chatbots, but nothing more yet. Our customers, as we look forward, as we're trying to study this situation, there are two ways that we're seeing AI impact. One is that any customer who's developing AI application, who's going to be, is probably working on technologies, is working on the latest technologies. So what application stack, what technology stack are they going to use? I don't know yet. I have not, because I haven't come across customers yet. I'm sure if you just go out in the market and talk to people, more and more people who develop AI-based applications, they know SQL databases than relational database, because again, as I said, the nature of the beast is more key value store if it's an AI. But if there's a business component to their application, which most applications do, the business component still sits in the relational database. So that is the most convenient way of storing data even today. Almost all of our customers who use in whose applications they use our product, those applications are working against a relational database. So from that perspective, we are very much a relational database ecosystem player. We fit into that application stack. The AI, I predict that, or not predict, I expect that when more and more AI applications, real AI applications, come out that are actually working, so far it is not there yet. I personally feel that AI hasn't gone through that hump yet, where it has not proven that it is really valuable beyond whatever most of us are doing, which is those chatbots. But those AI agents and all of that stuff, let's see how that evolves. But it will definitely have an impact on the application stack, and it will also affect the database stack. My guess is that if a lot of the technology decisions are also driven by the leading technology players. If the leading technology players are Microsoft, then Microsoft would still want their relational database to be pushed, or Oracle. But if it's OpenAI, if it's other players who are pushing it, who don't have an interest in pushing relational databases, then they might go for other options. And the same thing that happened with the NoSQL movement is that a lot of the non-business applications are using NoSQL, but all the business applications are still using relational because of the fact that the technology leaders who are pushing their stacks are encouraging people to use relational databases within those stacks.
Got it. I think I absolutely agree with the assertion that AI is a very strong productivity booster. So anything that we are doing on a day-to-day basis, our productivity can shoot up many times if we leverage the right tooling. Interesting anecdote that I'll share with you. I was at a conference, and somebody walked up to me, and we started talking about their Postgres problems, and the guy says that we run into many problems as we deploy Postgres, and we try and scale it. And I said, if there was one big problem that you would share with me, what would that be? And he says, when we deploy Postgres, we don't know what values to give the various configuration parameters that are inside of the database in order to leverage the hardware that we're deploying it on. And I said, well, if that is your biggest problem, then you don't really have a problem. All you need to do is talk to Alethana. Alethana is the chatbot that we have up on our website. It's trained on Postgres documentation and on the content that we produce. And I said, all you need to do is ask Alethana, and it will give you the values of all the parameters that you need. You don't need anything else. So in that way, I would say that AI is a strong tool that can and should be leveraged. It's here and it's not going anywhere. Last question for you. If we look forward, if we try to look forward 5 years, what concerns do you think that tech leaders might begin to see with their databases as we move forward, as the tech landscape evolves further over the course of these next 5 years?
See, I think I don't know how AI is going to really evolve. Is it going to have a Web 2.0 type of a moment where it will start to have really practical applications? And what would those be? People are predicting that it's going to take over everybody's jobs. I don't think so. I think it's making people more effective, but without those people, it is useless right now. And maybe in a very controlled environment, you could say that it can replace it. So a lot depends on where technology takes us from an AI perspective. But the overall human economy, it's just getting more and more digitized, more and more online, more and more device driven, like the same explosion that you had with the web application, with the IoT, with all the other stuff. All of that momentum just get to the more exponential growth. That's the direction that I see. As I said, not knowing really what that AI 2.0 is going to be. The AI of today is nothing more than a productivity tool of people who have at least half of the knowledge, if not more. So you have to have at least half or more of the knowledge to really use AI. And as I said, those people who are trying to impress you with a lot of AI being extremely smart are giving very, very specific, narrow problems, things that are almost you could have done even without AI with a lot of extra programming. Maybe not, but to a certain extent. But short of AI, I just see the same pattern continuing. And in that pattern, if there's one thing that relational databases have proven is that there is no replacement for them. All the business applications ultimately rely on relational databases. The business data, all of the information is not going to go away. It'll still be the same customer table and an order table and a product table and all sorts of, whatever that equivalent is. That will continue to be, and on top of it, as I said, the technology leaders, Microsoft, Oracle, being the two main on the application side, they have a vested interest in promoting their databases. And so I think that itself pretty much says everybody from Microsoft ecosystem happens to use SQL Server, even though Postgres and MySQL and all the others also support the .NET applications. So it's the human behavior based on technology leaders that I think is not good. It's not going to change. So I see more of the same.
Okay. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your perspective. It was it was lovely having you as a guest on our session, and I'm fairly certain that the viewers of the webinar and of its recording are going to benefit greatly from these insights. Right? Annie, over to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Umair.
Thank you all for being with us today, and a big thank you to Iqbal and Umair for such an insightful discussion. If you have anything that you would like more clarity on, please feel free to connect with Umair and Iqbal on LinkedIn, and they will be more than happy to discuss anything that you have questions for. And that's it from our end. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Annie. Thank you,
Thank
Iqbal.
you. Thank you.